Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from Skiessentials.com.
And I'm Bob. How's it going?
Bob and I are here to continue our 2026 ski comparison, and now we're back in the world of wide skis.
Much to, I know, your personal delight.
Yeah, I like talking about the narrow stuff. I mean, I think I explained it pretty well in the last video. I just find it harder to compare and contrast those ultra narrow skis. And up here, there's a massive difference between the first ski and the last ski.
Yeah, I mean, these still have, the last two at least specifically, have like race-like construction. You know, there's inspiration from more front-side oriented skis, whereas over there it is not. Yeah,
totally. So this is 110 millimeter Freeride skis. That's kind of what we're labeling this category. Do you know off the top of your head what the range is?
108 through
112?
112.
Or 114
is our outlier.
In the long length?
Yeah, so this 186 is a 114. The 192 is as well. The 180 and below are 112s.
Yep, and we are going to go in our most approachable to most demanding organization, as we have been doing, which is going to just leave the mid 100 millimeter comparison as the 2026 outlier in this video series. Anything else you want to say before we get into it?
We'll go one wider than this too.
Yep.
So starting
that's
at
a good point.
114 level and and up.
Yep. That's always a fun video. There's actually like line Pescado here. That'll go in the next one. I like this, not that I dislike the next category, but I like this range a lot because I know some people will kind of scoff at this, but there's still actually some versatility up here.
I think it's a good mix of where dreams and reality meet.
Right.
You know, your Pescado there is too far to dream.
It's very dreamy.
Yeah. Whereas this actually has some realistic componentry to it for a lot of skiers. Yeah. So it's a good mix of those things.
Yeah, or like, you know, you're skiing like upper mountain freeride-y terrain, and then lower half of the mountain, you're back on a groomer. On a lot of things up here, at least you can still like, you know, make some turns.
Yep.
Where a lot of skis, when you get super, super wide and you get them on a groomer, they're just like, you're just getting to the bottom. It's just a tool, not like a fun thing.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a good point that we will go narrower.
Wider.
Thank you. We're not going to go narrower. We're done going narrower. And I'm going to start us off in this one with this Elan Playmaker 111. What length is this? It's
188.
Massive. 188.
Yeah. I like to opt for the longer ones in this category.
I think this is a great place to start. We've talked about it several times now with Elan, that in this organization we often start with their skis, and they're just very approachable, very easy to ski skis kind of across the board. And you know, it's like, I don't really want anybody to perceive it as a downside that we've been starting with Elan, because it's largely kind of what they're going after. It's like fun and ease of use, not, it's like the antithesis to an M-Pro 108.
Right. So
this ski is really fun. This is the Elan Playmaker 111. It's built the same as not all the other Playmakers, but the 91 and the 101. Tube light wood core, super, super light. And then we do get carbon rods in this ski. It's different than ripstick. They're shorter and they're just focused right underfoot. So, you know, in ripsticks, you get them extending up here through almost to the shovel. That is not true with the Playmaker skis. It's like misleading because it's 188 in length, but 1900 and we'll call it 40 grams on the scale there, as it kind of waffles around a little bit.
But you see ballooning weights because you see increased mass.
Yeah.
So it's whereas you might think that an Elan is going to be closer to that 1,600 gram mark. Yeah, you go 188 and 111.
Right.
Just
it's like a lot of material here. So they are light. You know, we will, as we go through this, I think that'll become more and more obvious that is on the lighter side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm curious what we're going to hit when we get down there. light and pretty darn soft, but not the softest ski up here. We're gonna see at least a couple that are softer. To me, the thing that makes this incredibly approachable is that surf rocker shape. That's the term that Elan has been using to describe the Playmaker rocker. Very, very long tip rocker, not a ton of camber height, and pretty darn long tail rocker too. Not quite as long as the tip. You know, this is, when we get up in this range, they're less focused on freestyle potential, even if it's a twin tip, and more focused on just soft snow performance. So that's why you're gonna see longer tip rocker than tail rocker, and then really, really nice shaping to kind of the early taper situation in these skis. And they're just incredibly easy to kind of pivot. They're very quick, they're light, and they're also responsive. So that's kind of giving you more of that ease of use, just increased control over where you're putting the ski. I feel like everybody that gets on these, their first impression is just how fun they are, how easy they are to ski. And we already looked at the flex pattern, but I think it's important, like, even though they are approachable and for this range of skis, they are easy to ski. I think like you got to take that with a grain of salt when you're in the 110 range, period, because none of them are beginner.
Right. Anyone who's beginning to ski powder and soft snow is going to have a hard time getting something like this just up on edge.
Totally.
You know, to make that turn. So.
Right. But among this grouping, they are incredibly easy to ski. I actually think you can ski them pretty hard. Like, you have to be really balanced. You have to have the right style. You can't expect the ski to like kind of keep you upright. But if you can check all those boxes, then you can ski them pretty hard. Like, I have, for me, they're perfectly fine for skiing pretty darn fast.
Yeah, I think they work well in technical zones, tight areas.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not like anything firm snow. You get over here to like a Rustler 11 and you're like, all right, like if things get dicey, it's nice to have that support, whereas you're just not fully supported with something that doesn't have metal or some extra weight to it.
That's probably like the biggest downside. They can get deflected. And I think that's where a lot of that stylistic, like how you ski comes into play, is whether or not that's going to bother you. I think, like, you know, the Reckoner 110 is a really, really good comparison to this ski. I think the Bent is as well, but the Reckoner always feels like a really, really close comparison. And that's interesting because it's like softer and damper. So it isn't as quick and it's not as responsive as this ski, but it kind of like absorbs things better, where this will get knocked around just a tiny bit. But really, really fun. Pretty central style going on here. We're going to see, especially kind of as we get down there, but even after the first few skis here, we'll see a lot more directional stuff. So if you like the idea of having a ski this wide that you can ski switch, land switch in the backcountry, you know, that's the furthest forward recommended mount point, which is getting pretty close to balanced. So good use there.
Yeah, and a great ski for scooting around trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, super good. And like, I mean, I don't know how often it'll come up, but appropriateness here in Stowe, this one actually feels quite appropriate because we have a lot of tight trees, and that's where it really excels, is like quick, tight trees, and then also slashy, surfy stuff.
Yeah, I find that the easiest ski to throw sideways, which is one of the reasons it went down that way
and I
for
think
me.
There's some others that are easy to throw sideways too from the shape, but like you have to add in the weight with this one, and it's so easy to flick.
Totally. Next, we got a Liberty Scope 110. This is year 2 of this ski and this new construction from Liberty. And I got on this thing this past spring, so got in it in more soft snow, like soft spring snow conditions rather than powder. and was actually really impressed with how well it held up, especially given, the fact that we've been on a 104 and a 99 and a 94, and just something about having that extra mass, like we talked about, does kind of make this style of ski enter a different level of performance. 1,904 grams here. What length is this? A 180 something, I'm sure. 182.
Yeah, so if anything, like heavier than Playmaker.
Yeah, yeah.
If you had exact length comparisons.
Yeah. But yeah, construction-wise, poplar wood core, we do get that phenolic plate underfoot, so it just gives it a little bit more of that stable feeling in the underfoot zone. And like Liberty, we've talked about this a lot, these poured urethane sidewalls really just deliver a nice, smooth, and quiet feel. There's really nothing like offensive about this ski. It's really well-rounded, also has more of that twin tip shape and style. I do think that there is that like backcountry freestyle component that goes along with this Scope 110.
A lot of things up here.
A lot of things up here. This is kind of the start of that, and I think that I like the one-hand flex test. And
that's a good one to do it.
Yeah.
That tail is particularly soft.
Yeah, the tail's wild, and we've noted this for the 104 as well in the past, where it's just a different level of flex, but I also found that it didn't want to wash as much as I thought, and for me being a bigger skier.
Like pretty wide back there.
Yeah, but like I'm pretty heavy and like can bend a ski, and I didn't feel like it was giving out on me. I felt pretty connected to the snow. So I thought that was all good news. When a ski can do that and be playful, it's kind of like a Line Chronic 101 or something like that, where you're like, well, this is really flexible, yet somehow it holds up.
It's another pretty good example of just the general concept of if you're keeping the same construction through all widths, chances are the wider skis are going to feel a little stronger just because you're adding mass.
Yeah.
Like that ski compared to the 94, they feel quite different, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But similar overall concept in terms of a twin tip shape. There's definitely longer rocker here, not as much of a dramatic taper shape. And then tail, pretty similar to the tip. It's kind of a symmetrical rocker profile as well as that taper shape. But yeah, I think that this thing works really, really well for skiers that are looking for that more playful style and character. You do have to be, wary of that tail. It's certainly a aspect of which you cannot ignore. And having that, you can actually see the thickness of the sidewall.
I was looking at it as
much thicker through the shovel here than through the tail. So certainly an emphasis on Liberty's behalf to make this thing extremely playful in the back end. I think they're great. I was surprised at how well and how supportive they were in really kind of junky conditions.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And I think that happens a lot for skiers that are, not everywhere gets light, dry snow.
Right.
If you're a Pacific Northwest skier, somewhere closer to the ocean, something like that, where you get heavier snow, it's nice to know that these things can be helpful in that situation as well.
Yeah, I agree. Also, like a pretty good candidate if you want to do some uphill skiing on them.
Yeah.
I think like that's kind of interesting to point out as we go through these. There's some that just don't really feel like touring binding candidates. At least the first two feel like that's just fine if that's what you want to do.
Totally.
So yeah, it's a fun one. Pretty similar to that Playmaker. I feel like the much less early taper here, which doesn't give them quite the same quickness, but a little bit different, longer contact points.
Yeah.
And then this ski's kind of going, going back the other direction into more early taper and back to a real surfy, smeary ski. This is the Atomic Bent 110. This ski's actually been the same since they introduced it like 4 years ago?
4 maybe? Yeah.
Where the 100, The 120, those skis both changed. This ski has stayed the same. It's just a lightweight wood core, poplar wood core. We get the Horizon tips and tails in this ski. It's not the updated Horizon that we get in the 100 and the 120.
Or the Mavericks.
Or the Mavericks, yeah. Thank you, good point. And it is very light, 1,800 grams on our scale here. It's also pretty darn soft. I think the next ski is softer, and I'd say this is probably a little bit stiffer than that Scope, but we're still in a pretty darn soft flexing world here, especially in the tail. It doesn't have that same super soft tail as the Scope.
No, a little bit more resistance there in the one-hand flex.
Yeah, and we've talked about this ski a lot over the years, but essentially this was derived from the bent Shetler 120, which is the widest ski. That's going to be really the best in like really deep snow conditions. We've often described this as kind of just like a more useful version of basically the same thing. It's not exactly the same thing now, and it wasn't when they first came out with it, because the 120s always had that carbon added, or had that carbon added to it when this ski came out. So they're not exactly the same thing, but 110 is pretty darn wide, and I think for most people shopping for a really fun powder ski, you don't need to go to the 120 in the bent line. I think the 110 has a lot to offer for most people. If you live somewhere that gets consistent, really deep conditions, go for it. Go 120. Yeah. But here in Stowe, this is certainly more appropriate if you're choosing a powder ski. 120 here is kind of overkill, and there's a lot of places out west that you could say the same.
Yeah.
Like not everywhere gets a ton of snow out west. That said, I think you need to have quite a playful and quite a freestyle-inspired skiing style. Not to speak for you, Bob, but I can at least speak for myself, and then I'll try to speak for you, and you can correct me. I love skiing this thing. It is so much fun. I feel like I can take all of its attributes and like manipulate them into doing things that I like to do on skis. Nose butters, tail butters, little wheelies and ollies all over the place. Yeah. Is it safe to say that you haven't had the same success on the bent 110?
It's safe to say, and what's interesting is like when we first got on it and we had a nice test day and 8 inches of snow, like prime bent 110 conditions.
Yeah.
I had a hard time.
Yeah.
And then like the following year I got out on a more spring-like day and I really liked it.
Yeah, okay.
So it works better for me in non-fresh powder where I get to choose
heavier snow.
Just like the pressure points.
Yeah.
Like when you're in deeper snow, it's more up to the snow to tell you where the ski is flexing and where the balance point is.
Yeah.
When it's smoother, it's more skier input. So I found that the more input I had over the ski, the better I got along with it. Whereas that deeper snow was preventing me from doing what I wanted with the ski. And I think some of it's a weight thing.
I think that's I was just going to say, I think that's a lot of it's a weight thing in soft snow. Because I don't, to me in soft snow, that's where it feels the best.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like flipped from what you're describing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there are several things that this ski is arguably the best at. It's not the longest tip rocker, like that Playmaker had longer tip rocker, but the splay at the very end combined with the Horizon tech makes like nose butters incredibly easy.
Yeah.
It's got to be the easiest buttering ski up here, period. So if those are the things that you want to do, if you want to kind of take that freestyle inspired skiing style and bring it into soft snow, this is a great choice. Probably one of the more symmetrical tip tail rocker profiles. It's not, the tip rocker is longer, but they're pretty darn close. So that's another thing to take into consideration is this is not a directional ski. It is intended to be a twin tip. There is a pretty big range of mount points as we see on a lot of bents, but it's not the 10 centimeter range like we get on 190. Yeah. It's like a 6 centimeter range, and they're all kind of focused a little bit more centered. So, you know, it has its limitations. It's not going to feel particularly stable at speed, especially on firmer snow conditions. I would say that, for me personally, is the biggest downside, is on firm snow, especially if you're skiing fast, there's just not much to rely on. And there's not even that much that's like touching the snow. So it's just, you just get kind of like wiggly. But in anything soft, even if it's like a fun, like packed powder soft groomer, then I think they can be really, really fun to ski. And you can get them in a special Grateful Dead graphic.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. The bases are actually more entertaining than the tops on that Grateful Dead.
Let me get them lined up what I think is correctly here. And then, yeah, really, really cool base design. Classic Chris Benchetler artwork.
Yep.
So, yeah, really fun one. Definitely leans more towards the freestyle park-inspired performance.
Yeah, and I'd say the same thing about this next one here, this Reckoner 110. And, you know, we've been talking about the new Reckoner 102 starting last year and how that was a pretty significant update from the original Reckoner 102. This was always the Reckoner 112. When they added the KF at 115, that kind of put that 112 in a weird spot, hence the move towards this 110. And basically everything we said about the updates to the 102 apply to this 110 as well. Just a denser, slightly heavier feel. You know, they're listing the same types of construction with an aspen wood core, their carbon spectral braid. The bioresin is like the one thing that's like relatively new, and I just can't quite come to grips with the fact that the bioresin is the contributing factor for these skis kind of all of a sudden being more damp and more durable and more powerful feeling without being stiffer.
Yeah, I don't,
you know, like, I don't know what it is.
I'm not sure that that deserves all the credit.
Yeah,
but it very well could.
It's something.
I don't know.
It's something to point to.
You know, I think like at least for durability, like the way that they kind of do like the step down top sheet now, that's huge. And I often wonder if that's contributing to what you're talking about too.
Yeah, and just a more structural top sheet.
Yeah.
You know, these things, they don't come across in catalogs or, you know, any of the literature we get. So. But yeah, another ski that on paper does not really suit my style or what I like to do out there.
Yeah.
But that does not take away from the fact that I have had an absolute blast on these.
Yeah, I always think that's fun, which is different than like really the first three.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
you got to kind of...
More success for you there.
Way more success for me here in the Reckoner 110. You know, and I'd say the same thing about that 102.
Yeah.
But similar to that Liberty, you know, the one-handed flex test here is just off the charts.
I think it's the softest ski up here. I'm going to take this one, but it's 2,150 grams.
Right.
Pretty heavy.
So not light. And we noted that about the Reckoner 102 as well,
Yeah,
that it's just around 2,000 grams.
It's got to be the softest ski up here.
Yeah.
I want to string it like a bow.
And, well, I mean, the arrow will just kind of like flop over.
Yeah, because it is damp. It's kind of like the opposite of the Playmaker flex.
Yeah.
That one's very, very poppy and snappy. This is it just keeps bending.
But what an absolute blast to kind of feel the entirety of that flex in a turn. I mean, it's just a kind of an obscene amount of tip rocker here. You know, it's consistent and then more splay. But yeah, you can really bend through that easily. You know, a little bit less camber than that bent 110 underfoot.
Yeah, that bent has a ton of camber.
Yeah, and then just similar story at the tail with just a ton of rocker back here. And when you get this thing up on edge, and similar to that 102, you know, you really feel the whole side cut engage and just delivers an extremely rewarding round turn feel.
Yeah.
And it's super fun on softer groomers, but then when you get it into deeper and softer snow, you really just feel the compliance.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give out. And I think that that's kind of that's kind of the big benefit here with this 110 and this new kind of more support. I don't know if it's supportive, but it's just a sturdier, denser feeling ski.
It's like, it's soft, but it's predictable.
Yeah.
You know, it's predictable and like trustworthy. Like there's like a baseline stability for it.
Yeah.
Which I think is nice.
Yeah.
And like that baseline stability doesn't necessarily exist in the same way in those first 3 skis.
Yeah, and you're still not looking at M-Pro 108 type of power
not even close.
And speed. It's not meant to be used in that fall line format. It's meant to be used in a lot more of a loping and gradual and more moderate speed.
Totally.
Really taking advantage of the flex of the ski and using that to basically create a fun environment.
Or like to compare to another twin tip that's right behind you. You know, we talked about like the torsional stiffness. I was even looking at that Unleashed 108.
Okay, we can look at both of them. Yeah.
It doesn't even come close to the torsional rigidity and edge grip of that ski. So like, while what you're saying is true, like you have to view it through a certain lens, and in this case, that lens is this is very soft.
Yes.
So it's always going to have limitations at speed compared to stiffer skis. It's like I think you can ski it really fast. It's just the faster you go, the more you have to be like slashy and not round.
Yeah, and I had brought up the Chronic as well, and I think we would have liked to have had a Bacon 108.
Yeah, great shout out. I know someone's gonna say, "Where's the Bacon?"
Yeah,
and I think we can get one in the next video.
We have the 115 and the 122 set for the next video.
Yeah, so we will have some Bacon representation. We didn't have that 108.
Yeah, but similar to that kind of Chronic style where you're like, how is this flex gonna feel supportive?
Totally.
And they just do a nice job of mixing that flex with good torsional stiffness with that carbon application. And yeah, it's just a ton of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good like backcountry freestyle candidate.
Yeah.
You know, I think like if you're looking in that category, I think looking at the weights is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. I think if you're a lighter weight skier, you might have better success with a bent 110. If you're heavier and or a really powerful, strong skier, I think adding in the weight is more of a benefit than it is a downside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you actually use it. It's a helpful attribute rather than hurtful. And then really moving into quite a different world with this Kaizen 112. First ski up here that's not a twin tip. We have that split core, a lot of technology in this ski. I believe it's poplar and ash. Am I correct? Thanks, Bob. And then this ski's got those 2 layers of carbon that we see in the Kaizen line. And it's a very, very interesting ski. 1,900 grams on our scale here. All DPS skis are pretty light. This is a 184. I feel like at some point we'll get over 2,000 grams and never look back. And it might happen soon. Although that Kessley might throw off my concept. Very interesting skis. This is one of the DPS skis with a 15-meter turn radius. Pretty light, like we just looked at. They're not soft. It's definitely the stiffest ski that we've looked at so far. I'm sure there will be some stiffer skis, but you know, these carbon-based Kaizen skis actually get pretty stiff, and that's important to how they feel. 15-meter turn radius, crazy long tip rocker with a lot of splay and like all early taper. So it's very interesting, and it's like if you're not in deep snow, this is a 184. If you're not in deep snow, you're basically skiing like a 140.
It's an absurd shape.
It's
like
wild.
There's just I mean, it's as dramatic as that Pescado is over there, like in terms of
like the opposite sense.
You know, it's just a totally unique look and footprint.
Totally. Decent amount of camber underfoot, and like you can see that stiffness. It's pretty hard to decamber it. And then the tail, I mean, it's a similar story in the tail as the tip, but far less for length and splay of tail rocker here. The one thing that's most similar is you still get a lot of early taper.
Yeah.
So that's, again, like it's just giving you a very short effective edge if you're on firmer snow conditions. And yeah, almost dropped it on my face there. I mean, this is always an interesting one and kind of a challenging one for me to talk about it because admittedly I have never really enjoyed skiing them. Like I align so much more with the first 4 skis that we looked at or
everything else.
Any twin tip up here. And then, yeah, like going outside of twin tips, I generally am going to prefer a longer turn radius and a damper overall feel. 15-meter turn radius with this flex pattern and all this carbon, they are incredibly agile and incredibly responsive. And depending on how you like to ski, it's either going to be a benefit or it's going to be something that just feels not good.
I think of this as it is a helpful powder ski. It is the most helpful powder ski in the world.
That's the next thing. That's the next thing I was going to get to. But like, do you agree that like that's only true for a certain type of skiing?
Yeah.
Like it's not helpful for me.
Yeah.
So just giving it the blanket tag of most helpful, there's like an asterisk. And I think, yeah, if you're like pretty new to skiing powder, this is a fantastic tool.
Yeah.
I also think that like the other ideal application for this ski is a super, super technical skier. I think you used the word technical to describe terrain for the Playmaker. This takes that concept and runs with it. Like finding like the tightest, most challenging lines on whatever mountain you're skiing. Like if you were skiing like upper mountain Stowe stuff, like what's the
like off the chin?
The booger. I was thinking you know, like that.
Yeah.
The stuff that I generally have no interest in skiing because it's like 5 feet wide.
Yeah. With
rock faces on either side of you, and like you have to make a ton of quick little turns. I think it's great for that type of skier. If you're like a real adventurous technical skier and you're exploring backcountry lines or hike-to terrain and you like to make a lot of turns, you know, like again, another one that's like kind of in antithesis to the M-Pro 108 over there.
Yeah.
That ski just wants to go fast.
Top to bottom. Yeah.
This ski has never felt like it wants to go particularly fast.
No, it wants you to turn.
Yeah.
And like maybe this is a year old in terms of the reference, but the Blizzard Anomaly graphic where they have all the little squiggles.
That would be,
and
that's,
then
that's a great analogy.
And then the one that's supposed to be the anomaly.
Yeah.
This one is all the little squiggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where this ski is super happy, and it does that better than anything else out there.
Totally.
They're really trying to milk the dollar to turn ratio, especially given the exorbitant price tag of this thing.
Yeah.
I think it's like just shy of $1,700.
It's pretty expensive. We didn't write down prices for this one. But yeah, it's like it really, really wants to turn, and like it's my fault. It's not the ski's fault. Yeah. But like I don't want to turn that much. Yeah. If I'm skiing a ski this wide and I'm skiing it in soft snow, I want to do more bouncy stuff, go straight sideways, slashy skiing style, and this is much rounder in its turn preferences.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed this. I like all the DPS skis with 15-meter arcs, and this thing works great for me.
I mean, you make a lot more turns than I do. Yeah. Maybe double.
Well, normally I like my Z-shaped turns on the side. This is like, it's just like...
But you take that same Z-turn style, and if you have that skiing style, you get on this, and it feels like the best thing you've ever skied.
Yeah, I think, It works really well for me.
Yeah. I think if we counted all of our turns for the entire season, you would double my turn count.
Maybe more. I think it would be like 3 to 4 times.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would spend like 100 more hours skiing backwards.
Yeah. I mean, I've counted my turns before, like, especially in moguls. Like, I try to count, and yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, like, just thinking to like what I like to refer to as the run off Stowe. That's like, it's like 10 turns top to bottom.
Yeah.
If you want to ski it that way.
I'm like 100.
You know? Yeah. So it's, I don't know. It's a really interesting ski. It's a fun one to talk about. I don't feel like I am the best person to present this ski.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's 100% my fault. That's not the ski's fault. It's just not designed for the way I like to ski.
Well, to that point, we also did not have a Koala 111.
That one, that's the
so
DPS that does work much better for how I like to ski.
We do have an Armada ARV 112 though.
Yeah.
Wish you had this one, but that's how it rolls.
I agree.
Similar to the other ARV series skis, this 112 also features a poplar wood core. We get that wedge wall technology in here as well, so a sturdier sidewall material embedded into the core just makes for a more cohesive feel. And just all the dimensions are wider, everything about the shape and the profile is more dramatic, moving up from that 106 to this 112. And just a little bit flatter overall too. I think that they really do a nice job of incorporating more of that drifty and smeary mentality into this 112, keeping that playfulness, keeping that freestyle focused inspiration fully intact. I mean, you can hop on an ARV of any width and really feel that it was based off of a freestyle, a creative, like a park, 100%. A slope style mentality. Just putting it into different footprints and giving skiers just the best possible choice for what they like to do.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the first 4 skis that we talked about.
Yeah.
That ski just, it ups the power a little bit, a little stiffer.
Just a smoother feel, and I think that happened across the Armada landscape when they kind of swapped out to poplar from Karuba.
Yeah.
And this 112 is no exception. 2,200 grams here, Jeff. We are bumping up there quite a bit. No idea where they put the lengths on these skis.
185.
185, there it is. Big number right there. And just a little bit more symmetry. We only have a 5 millimeter drop in tip to tail width.
I know. Pretty unique up here.
So there is more of that kind of symmetrical and balanced feel to this ski.
We didn't talk about it, but you know what the tip to tail drop is on a Reckoner 110?
3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's got to be the closest
to symmetrical in terms of shape. But yeah, like not a ton of splay here.
This one's 10.
That one's 10.
I'll stop interrupting you now.
You know, we think back to that Reckoner, which was a similarly symmetrical ski, and that splay is just considerably more dramatic. But this also has that nice early taper shape to it. So nice spoony shovel, stays right up on top of fresh snow, and pretty symmetrical looking tail rocker as well as taper. So yeah, lots of balance in this ski, and I think that that's part of that freestyle heritage for sure. And yeah, it does deliver a nice, smooth and supportive feel overall, despite having ample flex. But I would say more.
Flex, but
there's more feedback.
It pushes back. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's damper than Playmaker again, but it's similar in like its quickness to return.
Yep. And that's consistent across ARV lines, whether you're 106, 100, or 94, or 88, to kind of bookend it as the most peppy and energetic of the group. But yeah, really well built and well thought out ski, just with a more balanced platform. And I do think that this skier is more playful and creative, but they also want that increased support. I think we had Matt on these in a
Yep.
snowy day.
I think it was not this past season, so it's probably on a different graphic.
Different graphic, yeah.
But yeah.
But seemed to align with
totally
his style pretty well.
Yeah,
in being
big, strong.
Yeah, young. It's funny, you say big and strong, and I'm saying young and active.
I mean, he's both of those things.
Yeah, but it, just like those attributes seem to fit well with an ARV 112.
He's both the things that you and I have never been, respectively.
At the same time.
I have never been big and strong, and I don't, like, you were probably pretty fun and agile when you were a young mogul skier, but it's probably been a while since anyone described you as, like,
yeah. I'm not too poppy.
Right.
Just fine.
Yeah. And Matt has both of those things, and, like, that's pretty much, it's like, it's kind of a young person's, a young, strong person's ski. Yeah,
and they're going to get whatever they want out of it. The performance ceiling is relatively high, especially for a more symmetrical twin tip like this.
Yeah.
I think I think in Armada world, I certainly gravitate more towards this Declivity X108.
Totally.
But that doesn't mean that I don't have a good time on this ski. It just doesn't. I don't do what it wants to do all the time.
It's like the opposite of the DPS.
Yep.
Like, you just don't want to do those things.
I'd like to, but but a ski like the Playmaker, I'm closer to that. I need the ski
because it's slashier.
Yeah, I need the ski to be more helpful for.
Yeah, this one you have to push. Like, if you want to, like, throw it sideways and slash, you have to, like, it's that, like, push into the slash turn. So yeah. Really fun.
Yeah.
Just 2 mount points, and they're both pretty darn center.
I noticed that.
Let's do a little unofficial measuring here. So that's probably what, like 2.5 back from true center, which would make that one about 5. So even the further back line is pretty centered.
Yep.
Yeah, really fun one. Borderline appropriate in stow.
Depending on you gotta,
depends on
half
the
a
day
dozen
and
days.
the skier. Yeah. This is the Fischer Ranger 108. This thing's been around for a while now. I believe this is a carry forward graphic from last year, but the ski itself has been the same since they went away from that very different previous generation of Rangers. Poplar and beech wood core in this ski. We get that shaped TI laminate with the flex cut, and basically the wider the ski is, the shorter the metal plate is, or the metal application is, and the bigger this flex cut is. So basically trying to make them a little bit softer and a little bit more compliant as they go wider. I think this one is quite interesting because it feels to me like a ski that is pretty skier weight dependent on how it's going to perform. It is, before I take it off the scale, it's 2,130 grams on our scale here. The thing that really jumps out to me on this ski is it is a stated 18-meter turn radius. And I have skied this thing several times, and I don't think I've ever even come close to making an 18-meter radius turn on it.
I agree 100%. It's either been 10 shorter or 10 longer.
Well, 10 shorter is skidded, right? But yeah, it does feel like if you tip it over on edge and just ride its side cut profile, it feels like it wants to make like a 30-meter radius turn.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why. I think like some of it is like the tips and tails are kind of soft, and they have like a very straight kind of taper shape here. So I don't think that like this portion of the ski is pulling you into a turn. And it's actually like, to me, it's a noticeable difference going from 102 to this ski. I think I've talked about hitting that tree before, but like that's a lot of what I felt. Yeah. Like I think I had been skiing the 102 most of the day, and this wasn't like a carving turn application, but we went into the trees, and you know, I I made a line choice and it seemed perfectly reasonable, and I just couldn't get the ski to come around how I needed it to, and I just ended up making like a drastically bigger turn than I expected to. So I've always had an interesting perception of this ski. I don't think it's particularly good in tight terrain. I think it is phenomenal if you have a big, wide open bowl in front of you.
I agree 100%. Yeah,
it's like one of the best skis up here.
You need openness.
Totally. And then it turns into like kind of like a pretty approachable big mountain ski. Like really the big mountain skis, as most people would identify them, are at the end of this wall, especially the last 3. I think this, like, it can hang with, you know, if you've got a friend on a Corvus and a friend on an M-Pro 108 and a friend on a Mantra 108 and you're on a Ranger 108, they're not going to be skiing away from you. You can keep up with those people, and then there's a little bit more kind of forgiveness and ease of use to this ski. And it's coming from this rocker profile. There's a lot of rocker in this ski. Tip rocker's massive, and then there's a pretty good amount of tail rocker too. So you can shut it down more easily than you can on those last 3 skis over there, and I think that's where kind of that forgiveness and ease of use comes from. But yeah, I don't think it's a great one if you're expecting responsive, energetic quickness. It's damp and it's kind of smeary, and it does those things very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a bit blockier overall. You know, we've talked about the core thickness in the Ranger series.
It is pretty blocky.
And so that doesn't really lend to crispness or precision.
Yeah.
But it does lend to proper support, like landing cliffs.
100%.
And like, you know, being aggressive.
Yeah.
Like it can be supportive in that range.
It's just aggressive and loose.
Yeah, you just don't get the same precision. Even like I kind of feel like on paper, it's kind of like an older Blank. Like that shovel shape, that, you know, that wider thing is a little bit older.
But the older
Blank-ish.
Blank could make a short turn.
Right. And that's where construction comes into play as, you know, part of the conversation.
I mean, on paper, it's like right in between.
Right.
Old, like if you're looking at turn radius, it's right in between old Blank and new Blank. But even new Blank with a longer stated turn radius than this, I think makes a shorter turn.
Considerably.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one. And like, you know, I feel like a lot of those things could come across as negatives or like complaints, but you really have to look at where it's strong. And that is that open terrain, high speeds, and it does come along with some ease of use and some forgiveness.
Yeah.
And like, it'll make you feel more comfortable skiing fast in open terrain than a lot of skis up here. Because you can stop when you need to, but it has the directional stability that, you know, on the complete opposite side of it, if you're like, I do 2 things when I'm skiing fast in open terrain like that. If I get uncomfortable, I either stop or I straight line.
Yeah.
And it'll do it'll do both of those things pretty well.
Yeah.
Like if I can see the bottom of what I need to get down, and there's a path to just point them straight and go, like I'm inclined to do that, and I think this ski will do that pretty well.
Next one here, Kastle ZX108.
This might go under 2,000.
Yeah, a little light. I like to talk about this these days because it has spawned basically half of Kastle's catalog right now.
That's got to be the last one.
1,939 grams here in the 184.
It's solely responsible for like 8 of their skis.
Yeah, it's crazy. So this came out a few years ago, I think, as Kastle's kind of want to engage a different level of consumer. For years they've been known as that high-end, high-price, you know, and it's not like these are cheap. I don't have a price, but they're not $1,000.
I think they're $799, but they may have gone up.
Yeah.
I think they at least at one point, I believe, were $799.
Yeah, but this came about to try to attract that new youthful freeride oriented audience as opposed to a little bit more of that hard charging FX line. So this was started as, you know, kind of a complement to that. Now it is basically steamrolled the rest of Kestle's skis. So we get, I'm going to try to rattle them off here, the ZX108, the ZX100, the ZX92. We get an Obsidian 92.
Yeah, I thought you were going to get tripped up on that one.
We share a mold with Paragon 107, and then the 101, and then the 93.
Yeah, I think that's 7.
7 skis. And yeah. I don't know if they make a 115 anymore in this, but it never seemed to do that well at any rate. But the ZX108 really focuses on a high-level, non-metal directional construction. They also filter the same rocker profile and taper shape down throughout the widths. So the same rocker profile you get on a 108 is the same you get on a 93, which is pretty interesting. This one, you say that weight, 1900 and something?
It was 1930. I think I only alluded to the fact that it was under 2000.
Okay, under 2000, 1930. Decent tip rocker here. Not a ton. I think the splay, the taper is the bigger conversation here, with a much wider platform down here, especially for a directional ski. And then that flips when we get to the tail, which is the flattest we've seen so far with the least amount of rocker.
It might be the flattest on the whole wall.
Very possible. We'll see when we get to that Dynastar or the Volkl.
I'm looking at the Dynastar now. I don't think that's going to do it.
Right.
Volkl might.
So just a little bit of taper here, but overall, this ski is trying to adhere to a more directional format. Poplar and beech in the wood core, so we do get a little bit denser of a feel, mixed with some nice energy. Shovel is pretty flexible. You know, we do get that, Holotech.
You got it, yeah.
Holotech technology in the tip here. So that's removing mass, but it's a pretty thin profile up front. Certainly meant to stay up and out of the snow, especially softer snow, easy to throw sideways. When you get it up on edge, you will be able to access the entirety of that side cut with the flex, at which point you will get Kestle's really fun and engaging, more on-trail feel. So those things that do well in Paragon and MX series of skis certainly filter into the ZX108 when it comes to turning, control, and capabilities. But definitely feels like it's going to stay on top of the snow. You know, this flex is going to just ride and surf in softer snow, and this tail will cut straight through. When we get to something a little bit more twin-tipped, like an Unleashed 108, which I think has like a similar on-trail level of performance as this, which is crazy with a twin tip. You know, when you are getting more dramatic in the tail, it's not quite as clean through crud and chop. You know, there is a little bit of a downward force on the tail, whereas something like this Kestle will cut very cleanly through adverse conditions and terrain. But I think it's a really fun story, and how it's just spawned a ton of skis in Kestle's line.
Yeah, which is also interesting because you don't see many. Like that influence that it's had over their kind of current shaping, like the influence is stronger than the individual success of that ski.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. And, you know, we've sat on closeouts and other stuff of these skis. And,
exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, when there is a metal counterpart like the Paragon, a lot of people's minds are just like, yeah, I'm going with the metal one. I'm going with the more powerful one.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is space for this in skiers that maybe aren't as aggressive, not as powerful or hard charging, that want that proper flotation. They want that nice clean exit to the turn with good energy. I do think that these are more peppy than that Paragon 107, which we did have.
They are very
mid-100s.
I mean, they're not very different because they share the same shape, but they're pretty different in just how they feel.
Yeah. And if you're not interested in high-speed, hard charging, then this is the place to be.
Yeah. I'm very excited to talk about this QST Blank. I'm going to put this ski away and I'm going to go answer a question that our owner just presented to me. And then I promise we will be right back to talk about this QST Blank. You don't even have to go anywhere, Bob.
I'm not moving.
Okay. I'm not even going to turn my microphone off.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that, Bob.
It's all right.
I left Bob stranded here for, what, 20 minutes?
I took a nice break.
I think I said it was going to be 10 at most, and then it wasn't, and yeah, I feel bad. But anyways, I'm excited to talk about this QST Blank. It's not the first time we've talked about it, but this is still a pretty fresh story. All the QST line is new for 2026, or I should say all of them except for the Echo and the X. And the existence of the X is, I think, important to this conversation because that ski is an exceptionally good powder ski, and it kind of allowed Salomon to take the Blank in just a slightly different direction. We always talked about that previous Blank being a very, very versatile powder ski. It was pretty agile, it was playful, it was fun, but it had some strength to it too, and it actually could make some nice turns on groomers because it's like a 17-meter turn radius. I think a lot of that still remains true with this new QST Blank, but if anything, they're just shifting it a little bit towards what I would describe as more of the big mountain segmentation.
Yeah.
That lets the QST X be the real powder-focused ski, and then, you get a lot of versatility still with the 106, and this can be just a slightly more specialized thing.
Yeah, a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
More fall line oriented, especially versus the old Blank.
Yeah. So poplar wood core in this ski. We get basalt stringers kind of woven into the fiberglass layers. You can actually see them. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you have it in person. It might not come through as obvious on camera, but it's these strips down the middle. And then we get that corked amplifier, which you can see and you can also feel in the sidewall here. So new construction, and yeah, it's 2,200 grams. What is this, the 186?
Yeah.
Yeah, 186. So it's not light. We're back kind of in that 2,200 gram range, and it's a fairly stiff flexing ski. It's not tremendously stiff. It's making some lovely noises as I flex it.
I know, I don't want to do it to the other new one.
Yeah, well, that's okay. And yeah, I think it's a lot of fun to ski, and it's a little bit faster now. That's kind of how I would describe it. One of the big things that they changed is they moved from a 17-meter turn radius in the previous ski to now a 19-meter turn radius here. 19 is bigger, yes, but it's not huge. And like we were talking about with the Ranger 108, sometimes stated turn radius isn't telling the whole story. I think this ski absolutely can achieve that 19-meter turn radius, but it's more comfortable going a little straighter than the previous Blank.
Yeah.
Which I think is important. The tip shape is, in my opinion, quite similar to the previous ski. It's got that nice kind of spoony finish, nice amount of rocker here. It is kind of it's not progressive rocker like we see in some other skis. It's just camber and then changes, and then it's kind of just the straight jut out.
Yep.
And that's even further exaggerated in that QSTX. That ski has really distinct lines. The tail has changed pretty significantly. So still a good amount of rocker back here, but much less early taper than we saw in that previous version of the Blank. That ski came to much more of a pointy, almost pintail finish in the tail. And this has the blockier, almost squared off tail shape, which is basically shared in the new QST 94. The 94 and the Blank have very similar tail shapes overall. So there was specific intention to this tail shape. I do feel like the intention is a little different from 94 to Blank.
Sure.
In the 94, it's kind of more about how it finishes a carving turn or how it finishes any turn really. In this ski, it feels more like landing stability. And that's something that Salomon has talked a lot about, is that their athletes that ski this ski wanted to be able to ski it a little bit faster and wanted it to be a little bit more reliant for landing big drops or any kind of big airs. So having this kind of beefier tail back here has given that added strength. But the ski overall is still relatively easy to control. It's not like they made it completely different and gave it like a 26-meter turn radius or something. Right. It still is very, very willing to turn, but they have ticked up that power.
I don't think an old Blank enthusiast is going to be remotely disappointed. You know, it is a slight difference in that turn shape. You know, that's kind of where I've noticed it the most, is that the old Blank really kind of liked, and I like doing
very round,
more round turns, and I mean, you could let it run because it was more stable. Yeah, it was a heavier feeling ski, and you could let it run no problem. But this just allows you to do it easier and more intuitively, I think.
Yep, totally. Another one that our friend and coworker Matt Stromecki has taken a strong liking to, and you know, I think when you start talking about all of its attributes and characteristics, that is certainly not surprising. Nope. You know, like he's kind of that type of skier that on the previous Blank, maybe he would have wanted a little bit more stability, a little bit more speed, and I, you know, for a skier like that, you certainly get it here. And yeah, I do think like the way that the Blank and the X kind of coexist and complement each other, I think it makes sense, and it allows this ski to kind of be the pseudo big mountain ski, more of a Freeride World Tour choice for a Salomon athlete here.
Yeah, and like even with there's a 4mm, X is 116, right?
It's either 116 or 118, and
even
I don't feel comfortable
4 or 6mm difference.
They feel
vastly different.
Yeah, that X is built lighter. It's very, very surfy and smeary and floaty. This thing, it does have some float to it, but it kind of is more like the type of ski that it's looking for something under there to interact with.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think I really enjoy all the changes to the QST line. You know, we talk about the versatility and just like the broad approval of the 94 and the 100. I don't think it's exactly the same story with the Blank, but I certainly think that they made some noteworthy improvements to it.
No, I agree. Up next on my side of the wall here, Jeff, we got a Dynastar M-Free 108.
Yeah, and we also had an interesting conversation about the stylistic differences and whether these are going to be more or less approachable.
Yeah, what keeps me in the more demanding side with this M-Free 108 is the stiffness and height of camber underfoot.
It's pretty stiff.
They're pretty stiff. I mean, it's not, you know, tips and tails, again, are going to be a little bit more compliant, but the underfoot zone of this ski is certainly on the more demanding side. This ski at 108 is really versatile, very energetic, probably one of the more well-rounded skis on this wall, one that could...
I think we're the next, like, 4.
Yeah.
You know, talk about well-roundedness.
And, like,
That's the sweet spot right
multi-capable.
There. Totally.
You know, if like, these are starting to get into that point where you were talking about at the beginning. I'm seeking out fresh snow, deep snow, adventurous terrain. I also understand that not all days are like that, and I still have to get back to the lift.
Yeah.
And we kind of hear that term a lot, like back to the lift. How is this going to work getting back to the lift? And while that's not a priority for a lot of skiers, it's hard to ignore that something like this M-Free 108, this Rustler 11, you know, the Unleashed 108 are fun and engaging skis in an on-trail format.
I love skiing that Dynastar on groomers. It's a blast.
Yeah, it is fun. Yeah. And, you know, the caveat is that the softer the groomer, the better.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you do get a lot of response out of this ski for sure. It is built with their hybrid 2.0 wood core, so 3 layers of poplar wood in the wood section, and then we get polyurethane along the sides. And we talk about that a lot and how it adds smoothness, silence, and energy to the mix to go along with those interlocking wood layers, which really do a good job of delivering a lot of pop to the ski. And that's what people generally notice about this, is that when you get into a turn, you are going to feel like you are being placed in the next one due to the energy of the ski.
Extremely energetic. I think you're spot on.
And they're not light, 2,158 grams here in the 185. And yeah, this is that camber.
Yeah, it's such an important characteristic to that ski.
This is it. You know, it's stiff. Like when you try to decompress it, you can really feel a lot of feedback there. And that's going to equate to on snow feel as well. So when you load this ski up with energy, it is a lot more responsive and rebound oriented than a lot of other skis here. You know, there's a lot of drama in this profile as well. Very shapely throughout. You know, long camber, not a ton of splay here, or long rocker, I'm sorry. A little bit more of that pin-tailed shape that we've talked about in the tip and somewhat in the tail. You know, this allows for pretty easy steering, just having it be a little bit more rounder and a little bit more sharp towards the back, so like thinner at the very, very tail. And then we get, you know, there's metal back here, Jeff. You know, there's there's substance to this ski. So it's not just, you know, it's not a noodle. You know, it's stated 18-meter turn radius. I think it's right there, you know, when you talk about
100%, yeah.
A Ranger 108 having the same turn shape, you know, stated on paper. Like this one actually feels like it is comfortable and prefers that 18-meter arc. If you want to shorten it, tighten it up, it's not that easy. Yeah. You know, like pushing against stiff. That camber is pretty hard. If you want to let it run straighter, I do think that the ski is supportive enough to handle that. But definitely a really good option for people that are mixing powder, crud, chop, groomers. You know, there is certainly a freestyle application here with that more balanced twin tip shape, you know, because it is influenced by their more freestyle oriented twins, just in a wider bodied format. But yeah, I think that there's certainly a creative component here, especially if you like to use the energy of the ski to manipulate your movements. Yeah,
also like, I hadn't thought of this until just now, but like you could make an argument about flip-flopping that ski and the Sender Free 110 as well for like approachability, and it kind of again comes down to skiing style and what you prefer, because those skis are compared a lot and there are often questions between them, and I always find like the M-Frees are a little like sharper, and that's like it's coming through in that camber height and like the amount that they kind of want to like dig in. That the Sender Free has always felt a little bit looser and like surfier. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it is a slightly longer camber profile, but nowhere
lower
near as
and
high.
Easier to push through.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like now far better than any other like comparison of their narrower skis in the past.
Yep.
The exact same thing is true between the M-Free 100 and the Sender Free 100.
Right.
Like, because this relationship has always existed, the M-Free 108 to the Sender Free 110, and now it's like it feels like it's kind of conceptually supported by the narrower versions of each ski.
Yes.
So. And I think like the way that you have it organized here makes sense, because for most people, that like the M-Free's preference for nice round crisp turns is going to feel encouraging, which like makes it feel approachable. You know what I mean?
I also feel like there's something to be said for what the Freeride World Tour athletes are on, and like you will see this ski, but you will see the 112. Which we did not have for this comparison, so that 112 would fit very nicely up against that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Next ski is a great one, you know, talking about well-roundedness. If I had to give a title of the most well-rounded ski on this whole wall, I think I'd probably give it to the Rustler 11. And some of that is coming from just thinking about how many different types of skiers could ski it and enjoy it. And like, I think you can take somebody with a freestyle background and they're gonna have a great time on it.
Yeah.
It might not be the best at skiing switch or landing switch, but it has enough of that kind of influence that you can do creative kind of fun things on it. And then I think you could take somebody that's never skied backwards, that has no freestyle influence in their skiing at all, and they're also going to have a really good time on it. And there aren't too many, like, I don't feel like I can say that as confidently and profoundly about quite anything else up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further and add that you can say that about the 9 and the 10
100%,
as well within
yeah.
the Rustler line.
And that's like, it's a perfect example of why they have been so successful.
Totally.
Is like, you can pretty much literally put anybody on them and they're going to have a really, really good time. So anyways, Rustler 11 here, fantastic new top sheet.
I think this is one of the best looking skis of 2026.
Really, really good. Aside from the top sheet, everything else carries forward. So we get that True Blend Freeride wood core. So this one, they work in some Polonia and get the overall weight down quite a bit. And then we get that Flux Form metal application in this ski. Flux Form and True Blend are used kind of across the board, or not fully across the board, but are used to describe a lot of different skis that Blizzard makes. In this sense, the Flux Form is along the edges and underfoot in 3 different pieces, and that differentiates pretty significantly from the same name, Flux Form, in the Anomaly skis.
Yeah.
In those skis, if you add up all the metal, it's 2 full sheets in total. In this ski, if you add up all the metal, it's not even 1 full sheet.
Right.
So along the edges, which, you know, we don't talk about old versions of Rustlers very often, but this is basically the opposite. And we've had this conversation several times. I think the result is awesome. Those old Rustlers had a little bit of a hinge point. These skis, they still are soft, or relatively soft, and they have a pretty playful, fun feel, but there's much more consistency, particularly through the shovel here.
Yeah.
You're never gonna fold it, where on the previous Rustlers, every once in a while you would fold it. Impressively lightweight, Bob. I saw you messing with the scale there.
I had to do it twice.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, so just over 2,000 grams here. So, you know, thinking back to Hustle, when they redesigned Rustler, they made them lighter than the Hustle skis. And I do think like it's important to point out how light they are.
Yep.
You could actually put an Alpine touring binding, or I think probably a hybrid binding would make the most sense here, but yeah, it's light enough that you could go uphill on it. And then the shape is just so much fun, and that's really where a lot of the versatility is coming from. A lot of the broad appeal, good amount of tip rocker up here, enough splay that it's gonna feel like it's kind of rising back to the surface in soft snow, like that nice, you know, it's like the tip starts interacting and then this still has enough kind of angle to it that it's bringing you back to the surface very nicely. There is camber underfoot. It's not like that M-Free camber where it's hard to push through. And then less tail rocker than tip rocker, both in length and in splay. So you do get a little bit of support from the tail of this ski. Certainly nothing like you get on the Anomaly side, but enough.
Yeah.
You know, I think like you can ski them pretty hard. And these skis, I mean, it's hard to like pinpoint the highlighting characteristic of this ski, because it does so many different things really well. It's damp and stable at speed, like it doesn't feel chattery, it doesn't feel like it's getting deflected, but it's also really, really easy to release the tail edge, get it to slash and smear. So you kind of combine all those things, and it's an extremely well-rounded freeride / powder ski. I think like for a lot of skiers, this is a nice sweet spot for this category of ski.
I think that despite it being the widest ski on the wall, it is nowhere near the best floater. Pure floater.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think that what you were talking about in terms of it being hard to pinpoint what it does the best, like I don't think that pure powder flotation is its strength compared to the rest of the skis here, you know, the DPS, the Blank, you know, even to Armada here, and I think that there's better pure floaters. Yeah. This has a lot of other attributes, like that smoothness, the damping of the metal. Yeah. It's extraordinarily well-rounded.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I've always thought that this ski has a pretty similar shape.
Yeah.
And, like, Playmaker 111 feels very, very, very floaty.
Yes.
And this, you know, yeah, I agree. It feels less floaty. And some of that's coming down to weight, but yeah.
Some
of it is like just how good it is everywhere else.
I mean, it just does really well.
Your perception.
Like, it deals with adversity very well.
Really well.
So changing conditions, different terrains, steep, chalky. You know, I think of like, you know, Marcus Kasten, I think, is obviously a really good example of a skier who can push this ski to its limits, especially in like junky snow.
Yeah, he does really cool stuff on it.
Yeah.
Because he'll like drive a high edge angle turn and like you can really see him relying and benefiting from this portion of the ski and like the metal along the edges and the precision and strength. But then like he's a pretty fun skier too. Like in a lot of the, you know, like return of the turn stuff, you don't see him like doing silly playful things, but having skied with him, he does some silly playful things too. And that's where you see him kind of using the tail to be creative.
Yeah, no, I think I have an absolute blast every time I'm on this ski because it is...
Me too.
It's approachable, yet you can really push it hard.
Yeah. Interestingly, like it wouldn't be my first choice in this category.
Yeah.
You know, we're working on another project right now of like some conceptual quivers.
Yep.
And I added the Rustler 9 to some of my conceptual quivers. And I think for me and for a lot of people, when you get up into this category, you're specializing a little bit more.
Yeah.
But if you don't have those preferences, then it's just incredibly good.
Yeah. No, I agree. This is another one that falls into that category. Rossignol Center-Free 110.
Yeah, more freestyle-y though.
More freestyle-y, you think?
Yeah.
I feel like this thing, kind of like we've talked about with the Sender Soul 102, is one of those skis that just is more damp and more fall line oriented than you may think. Like it does have
100% agree with that. The shape is more freestyle.
The shape is more freestyle, but then you get into the scale and it's just south of 2,400 grams.
Yeah.
This is the 191, so I mean it's a big ski. But just shy of 2,400 grams. I mean, Rossignol, we talk about this a lot. They make stiff skis and they make heavy skis.
Yep.
So the Sender Soul 102, this Sender Free 110, will feature the Sender Free 118 in the powder ski video.
Yep.
Those are like 2,500 gram.
Yeah, they're big.
Like almost there, which is something that you just don't see a whole lot. So almost 400 grams heavier than Rustler 11 here, albeit a little bit longer. But I feel like you feel that in the dampness and stability of the ski, especially at higher speeds. And that's not to take away from its freestyle capacity and its more creative nature. It is built with that full poplar wood core. We get the carbon alloy matrix in here. We get a metal plate underfoot, so there is some stability and grip in that underfoot zone. And I think that those additives are what bring it a little bit further distant from the M-Free 108 in terms of a upper end potential, which is why you do see this on a lot of athletes' feet, especially in freeride competitive formats and stuff like that. And they also seem to be using these skis in those events in which more air is part of the show. You know, not as fall line, big mountain oriented as your Corvus or your M-Pro 108 or even the Mantra 108. But if there's a course which has jumps that require creativity, you do see a lot more of these center free 110s.
They are excellent at jumping.
So solid. Like, we looked at this earlier, a little bit flatter than that 108, but a good amount of rocker here in the tip. And just like, you know, you've been on that 100, that center free 100 a whole lot. You know, very similar in terms of footprint. You know, if you just pared this thing down, shape-wise, that's what you're getting. Obviously, a little bit different of a construction. But
yeah, the power ticks up a tiny bit to 110.
With this, yeah. I mean, you're just getting more mass, more material, you know, but overall, very, very freestyle / free ride oriented.
Yeah, and like more carbon to basalt ratio in this ski where the 100 flips that.
Yeah.
And I do think you feel it. Like that's where some of the added strength in this ski comes from.
Yeah, and
more carbon and also putting it on top of the core.
Yeah. I mean, this thing has a sweet spot in terms of speed, I think. Like, not a whole lot of slow speed compliance in this thing. I think you want to start letting it go.
Yeah.
And, you know, certainly has I feel like that advanced and expert skier just is going to have more room to grow with the ski.
Yeah.
Like, you can push it. There's not much of a limit here.
Yeah.
But it does still have a nice round flex to it, which keeps it a little bit more accessible than some of these skis.
Yeah, it's kind of like the unofficial Alta ski.
Yeah.
Our friend Eli was here yesterday. Were you here when Eli stopped by?
I heard, yeah.
Yeah. And he's actually answering he's working with us and helping us reply to Gear Finder inquiries. He's going to ski Alta this year. And we had kind of a funny conversation where he was like hemming and hawing about what ski to choose. And he was like, I'm kind of like looking at the Rossignol Sender Free 110. I was like, well, you'll fit right in.
Yeah.
Because you see a ton of them out there. And when you think about like the kind of quintessential Alta skier, it really makes sense. Because a lot of people that live and ski out there, I mean, a lot of them are really, really good skiers. And a lot of them ski pretty fast. But then it's also true that like most of them have some amount of like kind of like freestyle background or at least like freestyle attitude. Like you see a decent amount of jumps getting built inbounds and you see, you know, like certain sections will form and then a lot of people will be hitting that and doing tricks off of it. And like when you think about that overall concept and mindset, it just perfectly aligns with the Sender Free 110.
It's a terrain park ski for mountains that don't have terrain parks.
I couldn't have put it better myself.
It's hilarious. That was such an interesting experience being like, how are these people doing all these tricks and there's no terrain park?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's because they're all skiing a Sender Free 110. It has nothing to do with their actual ability level.
I love it.
Pretty sure the opposite of what I just said is more true. Next ski up here, this is a fun one. I know this is one that you really like, Bob, and you happen to own the narrower version of this ski. So I'm looking to lean on you for a little bit of Declivity X opinion here. This is the Armada Declivity X108. This is part of a redesign to the wider declivity skis, including that 102 that you have. So this ski, poplar wood core, now we get our ATBX metal laminates in this ski. So they're about, you know, we'll roughly say they're about that long. And then we do still get those slits, those like articulated Titanal banding slits cut into just the forebody section of that metal. So allowing for some torsional stiffness or reduction of torsional stiffness, I should say, in this portion of the ski, just to give it a little bit more smoothness and a little bit more compliance. There's still a decent amount of metal in here, even though they're short, and you know, there's 2 layers of 2/3 of the ski length metal. So yeah, we're pretty close to 2,150 grams on the scale here. And they're not soft flexing skis. You're starting to get pretty stiff as we kind of end this comparison over there. I think we'll get a little bit stiffer. We'll probably get softer too before we get stiffer, but it's a pretty stiff ski. And we've talked about a lot of twin tips up here. We've talked about a lot of skis with a decent amount of versatility, kind of thinking to the Rustler 11. To me, when you get to Declivity X108, and this is where I want to get your opinion as well, because at my size and my weight, these start to feel like more like directional chargers than like kind of anything else.
Yeah, and just to note, there's a big difference between the 102 and the 108.
Yeah.
Like, I like them both, but they are vastly different skis.
Yeah, I mean, and they're built the same.
They're built the same.
So it's just adding that 6 millimeters of width. Like that, you can really change the characteristics of a ski.
Yeah.
So,
but they basically don't add much in the tips and tails.
No.
So the big story here is, and even in this length, it's a
long turn radius.
Is it 24?
I don't know. I'm going to get there.
It's on the other, sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, everything that you were saying is true. I really like looking at the long but very low tip rocker up here. So some skis, when you're looking at their rocker profile in the tip, it's like, unless you're in truly deep soft snow, it's not doing much. Where this, like, even though there's rise here, that's still going to be effective edge.
Right.
At most edge angles. Like, you'd really have to be skiing it truly flat to not engage that. So even though it has long rocker, it doesn't ski short at all. Yeah, this, what'd you say, 25?
24, I thought.
This one's 24.
Yeah.
Yep. So 24 meter turn radius, and even just like holding it in your hand, it looks pretty darn straight. And that's one of the flatter tails up here. So, you combine all those things, and it is more approachable and easier to ski than, like, the ski I keep looking at over there is that M-Pro 108. That thing is just absurd. It's easier to ski than something like that, but like, this is where I would start to like really think about the decisions that you're making. Is like, yeah, are you a Declivity X108 skier, or would something else over here be a little bit better for you?
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say.
And like, we didn't talk about turn radius a lot with the first 4 skis, because it's not as important with the flex.
No, I agree 100%. I think we started our turn radius chat with the DPS.
This is a much bigger factor with a ski like this.
And we'll see it again with Corvus.
Totally. Where that's a defining characteristic that is going to be a limiting component for whether you're going to buy this ski or not, or whether you'll like it at all.
Yeah.
Because it is just a very different thing than, the Reckoner, let's say it's 19. It doesn't matter. The flex of the ski bends too easily to make it be even remotely important. You looking?
I don't even think they put it on here.
They don't care.
Well, I think like what you were just saying makes a lot of sense. Like, you flex right through whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like stiff, not a tremendous amount of rocker, and a 24 meter turn radius.
Yeah.
Like that's a hard charger ski.
Yeah, it's straight. And the funniest part is when you first get on something like this, or the Corvus, or a Head Oblivion 102. Yeah. Some of these skis with noteworthy long turn shapes.
First turn, you're doing a lot of that.
Yeah, you just kind of like tip it, and then you have to catch yourself with your other foot. This is the same type of feeling, but yeah, it really just likes to be increased in turn shape throughout the turn, increased edge angle throughout, or just let it run flat and straight. And it doesn't matter if it's fresh snow, crud, chop. This thing just planes right through it. And that's what we'll talk about with the Corvus as well, where it really attacks the fall line with intent.
Yeah.
And the bigger limitation is do you want that as a skier? So longer turn radius skis in this range with metal just require more attention on the skier's part.
Yeah.
It's not like it's an unapproachable ski by any stretch. It's just that there's a preference here that needs to be highlighted.
Yeah, like, I think even with like the new QST Blank, like it's a pretty safe recommendation to most people shopping in this category.
Yeah.
Where like Declivity X108, that starts to feel like a different thing. And it's also interesting because Armada for 2026, they have an alternative option to the Declivity X108 that's very close to it, the ARV 106 Ti.
Yeah.
Like they're built the same, but that ski has a much shorter turn radius and way more tail rocker.
Yeah.
So like if you like the construction story and you want that stability, but in a like arguably more useful shape for certain applications, then that's an option.
Yeah, I also like this one in the 191. I don't think we had it downstairs at the moment, but
You like the idea of it?
no, the execution of it. It's like, because if you're taking something that has a specific
Might as well go
standpoint,
long.
you might as well go all in.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yeah.
that's where I stand on it. Whereas I don't reach for the longest length in a lot of
No,
skis.
I understand what you're saying.
But it does.
It makes sense.
It makes sense for me in something like this because you're not. Same reason you want to go. I want to go to a 173 and a Rossignol Forza 70.
Yeah.
That ski is built to do this. This one is built to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna buy the proper length for that application. So whatever's supportive that best fits the ski is what I like.
Yeah. This one's like the opposite.
I know, but in such a good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Nordica Unleashed 108. We get another fantastic top sheet for 2026.
Yeah, really good.
Same construction as we've seen in Unleashed over the years. So we got their multi-layer wood core and then one sheet of terrain-specific metal. So basically what we're dealing with here is like Santa Ana construction in a wider, more twin-tipped, and amazingly more cambered shape and profile, which I always find very interesting. So terrain-specific metal in this ski, it's full length. It starts out as full width and then tapers in through the forebody, back out to full width underfoot or close to, tapers back in, and then back to full width in the tail. So again, full length metal just varies per width. So you end up having a little bit more compliance along the sides of the mid-body. The opposite of what we're seeing with the flux form in Rustler. Just kind of, and it does make sense in terms of where their emphasis is going. This does feel like a more damp ski when you're dealing with kind of this fore-aft movement in the ski, whereas if you're putting this thing, the Rustler on edge, you do feel a little bit more directly connected. That said, this is one of the better carving skis on this wall. Certainly has a lot of edge contact due to a longer camber profile, which is odd to say for such a twin tip oriented ski.
And like the least amount of early taper of anything up here.
It's like the most classically shaped ski, and that's kind of including these last two.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. So we're at the 186 here. We're at 2,159 grams. And they do, in these Unleashed series of skis, have a long effective edge. It's not like this is zero rocker, but it's less than we've seen in most of these skis.
Yeah.
And then a long, albeit somewhat low, camber profile underfoot. And then, not a ton of tail rocker. We do get that twin tip oriented splay at the end. But it's not like it's a drifty, smeary twin tip. I think like the ARV 112 is a nice kind of opposite to point to as
just a little bit more taper.
Yeah. But very much a classic shape and feel with this ski. It is kind of like this M-Free where the height of camber is the limiting factor for it being drifty and smeary. Here with the Unleashed, it's the length.
Yeah,
so
the lack of taper.
Yeah, just that kind of lack of taper and length of camber that makes it feel a little bit more demanding, especially in, deep snow. I think that if you're dealing with crud and chop and anything that's not totally fresh, that this thing does a really good job of cutting through and does kind of want to find the bottom like we find around here. And I'd give the Armada good marks for that, as well as, we don't have bottomless powder here, like, ever. It's like...
Yeah, like...
It's pretty rare.
Once every 5 years.
The greater majority of the time is if we get fresh snow, you're going to hear the bottom.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty firm below. So having something like this really goes a long way in making your turns more confident and compliant.
Yeah.
And then you get this thing on a groomer, and you just get that full bend of the side cut with the dampness of the metal, long effective edge, and it is a very rewarding carving ski at this width. It's so fun.
I mean, it always feels weird having that conversation, because I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Who really cares?
Right.
That's not what most people are thinking of when they're shopping in this category, but it's a good way to characterize and explain the ski, because that also kind of highlights its difficulties.
Yeah.
And I think you could have an interesting conversation between Declivity X 108 and Unleashed 108 of which one is more demanding. And I think that comes down to how you stylistically like to ski, and also the terrain and the snow conditions that you're skiing.
Yeah.
Because you go ski a groomer, Unleashed 108 is far more approachable. Yeah. You're like, oh, this is really easy to ski. This is great. Where the Declivity X 108, you'd be fighting to get it to turn.
Right.
And then you get into 10 plus inches of snow and try and make a slightly smeared kind of slarvy turn. The Unleashed, it requires some precise weighting and manipulation of the ski, where the Declivity is going to be more willing to do that.
Yeah.
So it's that's kind of what I meant by they're the opposite.
Yeah. No, and like we've said before, there's a ton of variance in skis here.
Yeah.
More than what we saw with the narrow skis.
Yeah.
And just for the same reasons that we talk about this 108 being a good carving ski, we talk about a ZX92 being a good floater.
Yeah.
You're not shopping for 92s for powder skis, nor are you shopping for 108s for carving skis.
Right.
But the fact that they do those things better than the relativity to the category, I think, is worth noting.
Yeah. And really fun.
Yep.
And you can also you can just make big trenched high edge angle carving turns through pretty much anything.
These things,
except for really deep snow.
Yeah. I mean, these things rip.
They
rip
completely
turns.
unflinching.
Yeah.
They just explode and cut through chunks of snow in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. No, they're really good. They come along with a relatively demanding feel, and it's also, we're seeing more modern influences in the shaping of the new Unleashed 120.
Totally.
So that to me at least raises a question of what's the future for Unleashed?
Yep.
Is 120 going to influence the future of Unleashed? I don't know.
And we got that 114 as well, so both of those
which
will
is
be
shaped like that.
This. Built
Right.
in shape like this.
Yeah. Which is that's even more of an extreme.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Next one up here. This is an exciting one. This is the Head Core 112 Ti. Beach and Karuba in the wood core of this ski. We're going to see another use of beach on the next ski that I get to talk about. And I think it's interesting how this one, they mix it with Karuba, give it a little bit lighter of a feel overall, a little bit more compliance in that Dynastar, they mix it with polyurethane.
Yeah.
So like kind of similar, but like very different materials that are used. So beech and Karuba wood core in this ski. And the big story with new head cores is now we get 2 full sheets of metal. We still get graphene, and we also get some flax as well. So there's a lot of ingredients in the recipe of the Core 112 here. To me, the 2 sheets of metal are still the most important thing to talk about. 2,150 grams on the scale here, so I think like that's where you're seeing that Karuba benefit.
Yep.
Because if this was just full beech wood core with 2 sheets of metal, it would probably be 2,400.
Yeah.
Like it'd be in like Declivity X range. They're still pretty stiff. You know, head cores have always been very stiff. The carbon-based head cores were exceptionally stiff, but these are still pretty stiff, and I think that's why they do belong where you place them. My initial reaction when I saw the organization of the wall and where you had decided to place these, I was like, you could like bring them this way, but it's a lot of ski.
They're also like, you know, one of the other big differences that we're dealing with is the lack of reactivity that we always talked about with that Core 111.
Yeah, these are much damper.
Much damper,
yeah.
Much happier to be like stood on and skied as opposed to the Carbon Core 111, which really required an active participant, someone who was a willing person in the game. Whereas, you know, this definitely, the metal does more of the work. So you can
100%.
stand on it and rely on the ski to be more supportive.
Yep. You know, I think like it's also fair to say that they took some quickness out of it.
Totally.
Like compared to previous cores. Yep. It's a 21 meter turn radius, so it's not crazy long like we saw in Declivity X and like we'll see in Corvus, but it's 21 meters is pretty long.
Yeah.
And then there's a good amount of camber in these skis. And that I think is interesting because it kind of feels like if they softened them up a tiny bit, they sort of countered it by adding a little bit of camber height here. And you still like, it's not like they're twitchy like the previous cores, but they're still like, you have to push through a decent amount here.
I feel like the camber in all of the new Core TIs is them trying to keep that reactivity consistent, even though they drastically changed the construction.
Yeah, and like it doesn't totally like fulfill what the previous skis did.
No, but it's a nod to that.
Yeah. The shaping is like relatively similar.
Yeah.
So decent amount of tip rocker up here, kind of the core tapered tip shape that we've come to expect that pretty much was evident on what 111 would be the closest comparison from the previous generation. There's tail rocker back here, Bob, but there's not much taper.
No, and that's definitely influencing that straighter turn shape.
Yeah, so that's another thing that's kind of adding into the more demanding feel here is it's not going to just wash out a turn when you want to.
Yeah.
It will, but you're going to have to work to get it to do that. And yeah, they're still very new. They're very fresh for us. You make it look so much softer than me.
I'm pushing really hard.
I mean, it's a pretty stiff ski. So yeah, they're pretty new. They're pretty fresh. We have a lot of plans with new head cores going into this upcoming ski season, and we'll be back on snow very, very soon. And then, yeah, kind of exciting that Matt picked up a pair of these for himself. He's got the snazzy matching, like Attack 17, I think.
Yeah, it's not exactly, he's got the tan, which technically goes with the Core 117.
It matches the sidewall pretty
sidewall,
darn nicely.
But not the white, the white insignia.
Thank you. So, yeah, another really good ski for somebody like Matt, who's young and strong and quick and agile and kind of, he can do all the things, so then the ski that he chooses can be a little bit more demanding. And, you know, I don't think we talked about it on the 108, but he also loves the 108.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see like where his preferences fall. And he made that Corvus look very easy to ski.
Looked like a narrow twin tip.
Yeah. So, you know, I think like kind of aligning these skis from their performance to a skier like Matt, as opposed to, you know, it's not that I wouldn't enjoy skiing this, but I'm certainly probably staying over here or really not going past that Sender Free 110 for my personal preferences.
Yeah, I'm going to stand on this and enjoy the ride. You know, I feel like that's where someone who's a little bit more conservative in their skiing would still enjoy this, because it is very predictable, and that's a big part of the move towards a more traditional dual metal sandwich laminate, which, like, you know, that's what Head did a great job with the carbon cores, but this really seems to be more like what their brand is all about.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Like it always felt like the core was just such an outlier in the ski world in terms of how it reacted with the snow.
And like didn't necessarily align to your brand, like how you perceive Head as a brand.
Yeah, and it resonated with certain skiers really well and others not so well. Yeah. Whereas this is going to be a lot more universal in its appeal.
Yeah, and like thinking to their race success and heritage. Like, this feels like it has some race DNA infused into a 112 underfoot ski, where nothing about previous cores felt like they had race influence.
Did not.
Like zero.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a big, burly, pretty beefy, chunky ski.
Yeah.
Some people are going to really like it. Some people might find it, I don't know,
it's a bit lumbering and cumbersome.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you want the ski to provide you with some energy, I don't think you're going to find it here. You have to bring the energy.
And it's especially stark given the difference between this and the Carbon 111.
Yeah.
Let's stick to this long turn shape here with this Black Crow's Corvus, which really is, that turn shape is pretty much the only reason why it's staying on this side of the wall. It is not...
I agree 100%. It's not like built overly strong. It's 100% the turn radius.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we got the wood core and then we have their metal plate underfoot, but it's not full sheets of metal like that Head core. You know, there is an energetic flex to it. It's not overly stiff. But again, Black Crow's does way more with their shaping than they do with their construction for the most part. You know, we'll see, you know, something here and there added in that's going to make a ski perform a certain way. But for the most part, you know, with a wood core and a partial sheet of metal, they do a whole lot to make this ski unique and individualistic. 186, we're at 2,028 grams. And we have a 25 meter turn radius. So right up there with that Declivity X108 in terms of being the straightest cut. And I think it's an interesting blend because you're getting a little bit lighter and a little bit more flexible, but then you add that straighter cut to it. And like you were saying, you know, when you brought up Matt and skiing this thing, able to throw it sideways pretty easily. And it does work better in softer snow as a result. When I got on them this year, it was soft-ish, but not deep. Yeah. And it was very interesting to really feel like, oh, I have to turn this more. I have to do this more. I have to do this more. I have to go faster. Yeah. So there's just a bunch of different things that have to happen in order for this ski to reach its performance potential.
It is much more user-friendly than previous Corvus.
The old Corvus was just a nutcase, you know,
absurd.
Very, very unique ski where that old Corvus and this M-Pro 108 had
equally as ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, this certainly still fits into that big mountain hard charging profile, you know, especially with that straight cut to it. But that's not to say that there isn't a very playful freeride oriented rocker here, and then taper shape, that widest part is brought well down into the ski. So you are getting a nice floaty shovel here. And then this is the biggest difference between this and the old Corvus.
100%, yeah.
Is just this 100% different tail rocker shape and tail profile here. So longer, more dramatic in the splay, and then just a lot lighter and more flexible too. You can actually flex through the tail, so you do get at least the hint of a round turn capacity.
Yeah.
I do think that, I don't know how many people are still familiar with the old Corvus, but
I don't think many people were familiar with it
when it was new.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has more off-piste capabilities, more kind of softer snow, tighter areas. You can actually throw it around, get it from side to side.
Yeah.
But again, like, you do have to be cognizant and actively seeking a longer turn radius to ultimately land on this ski, and you have to be kind of aware of where it works better and where it doesn't work as well.
It's kind of like exactly the conversation that we were having with the Declivity X108.
Yeah.
It's like you got to kind of, like, is that, like, if you're considering it,
Yeah.
you really got to look at what it is and kind of have a serious conversation with yourself of, like, is this what I want my ski to be?
Right.
And, like, by all means, there's some people that are going to just loudly say yes.
Yeah.
Loudly and confidently say yes. But, I think, like, most people are going to benefit from a slightly shorter turn radius and a little bit more ease of use.
And think of where you are too. It's like where we are.
Yeah.
These two 108s.
We're past two very hard to ski skis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much of a difference there are, even here in Stowe in Vermont.
Yeah.
It's like you might get 2 to 3 Declivity X108 days here, but you're getting 24
easily
Unleashed 108 days.
Yeah.
So
I agree 100%.
The difference in how often they're
appropriate
that performance level is reached is very different. So same applies to Corvus, where it is not, I would say, a very useful Vermont ski. But if you are in the Alps, which is where, I just always think about
Whistler, Jackson.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big mountains, open areas. Yeah. I think that's where this ski certainly excels.
I agree 100%.
Another great looking option.
Where, like, to compare another Black Crows, like, you could ski the Atris 50 days in Stowe. A great time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this ski is absurd. I would say that there are no Stowe days that are good for this ski. I think our friend Rory might argue with me, right?
You have to have a pretty specific set of priorities. I also love
skills
that these still come with
wax,
a factory wax.
Yeah,
I think that is like the coolest thing.
Yeah, so this is the Dynastar M-Pro 108. This is really a pretty unique ski. It's more of an athlete ski. It's really more for their team riders. You don't see many of them for sale. You don't see many of them on the snow.
Yeah.
It's a pretty specific thing. Like I was saying, where were we with?
Some beach.
Yeah.
In the core.
Thank you. Yeah. So this ski is beach and polyurethane. The polyurethane is located more along the edges. And then we still get Titanal rocket frame in this ski. So this is basically built like the previous generation of M-Pros, like more speaking to the 90 and the 99.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the updated construction that the 94 and the 100 do. When they changed that construction in those skis, they tried to make them a little bit more approachable and a little bit more user-friendly, and they did so very successfully. And I think that's a pretty good way to talk about this ski, is they decided not to. So this ski is still pretty darn burly and comes along with a very demanding feel.
You can think of a ZX108 as a wider ZX100. You can think of an Unleashed 108 as a wider 98. You cannot think of this as a wider M-Pro 100.
Not even close. No.
So
2,400 grams on the scale here. So one of the heaviest skis up on this wall. And like Yeah,
I mean, it's a 192, so
it flexes a little. I know I'm
you're able to
benefiting
get
from it being long,
but it's the stability of the wood that make it feel like it's
very
just
solid,
a solid, immobile ski.
Yeah,
at any speed.
Yeah, it's another one with a longer turning radius. It's not quite as crazy on paper as the last ski and that Declivity X108. It's stated at 22, but to me, this is another one of those skis where like
40.
You got to fight to get 22. You have to be like one of the best skiers that I've ever seen to get this thing to make a 22-meter turn radius. A lot of that for me is the tip. So good amount of tip rocker. It's basically like that, you know, the 99 and the 90 had very similar shaped tips. Long rocker and then this like pointy early taper shape. So nothing about here is helping you make your turn. You know, this shape is designed to just cut through soft snow, cut through choppy variable snow conditions in front of you and just stay glued to the snow and very, very composed. So you got to like bend it through the middle of the ski if you are going to come close to a 22-meter turn. And yeah, I think most people are just going to end up skiing it pretty darn straight and pretty fast. Good amount of camber underfoot. You know, you can push through it, but overall this thing's pretty stiff. The camber's not going to feel like it's fighting you though, and I think that's part of its intention of just straight and fast. And then the tail in these skis is very flat. I don't remember where we were when we were talking about what's the flattest tail on this wall.
I still think the ZX is.
I think the ZX is probably a little flatter, but this is probably the second flattest, and that Volkl might take that spot. But really pretty flat tail here, and there's not much taper to it either. So this is not going to release very easily, you know, kind of the opposite of M-Free 108 tail to stay in the Dynastar family. And it's just big and heavy and stiff and straight, and I have no interest in skiing it.
One of my favorite things, other than the fact that it still comes with like the factory wax, so like you have to scrape these things before you ski.
You don't have to.
You might not go very fast. That's pretty thick.
It'd come off in a couple runs,
I guess. It comes in a 182 and a 192.
Yeah.
And they're listed as different skis, like on their website.
Yeah, this one, is this the F team?
They're both F teams, but it's just, they list them
as different.
They're separate SKUs, like the 182 is a different ski.
I mean, I don't even have any interest in skiing the 182.
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
Yeah, you might get, here at Stowe, like nosedive isn't steep enough, like hayride and lift line. Yeah,
lift line, I guess,
sure.
but lift line you would get going so fast that by the time you hit 13 pitch, it would be terrifying.
I just always think of this ski as the ski engineers in Chamonix looking up at the top of Mont Blanc and
thinking
saying,
how do we get down fastest?
How do we get down the fastest?
Yeah,
that's it.
That's the application for this ski.
Yeah.
And if you're taking that and applying it to your Freeride World Tour run, cool.
You get speed points.
Awesome. Yeah, by all means, go for it. You know, I think that's another kind of stylistic, personal preference, even speaking to pro skiers in a venue like the Freeride World Tour. Some of them are leaning more towards speed for their scores. Some of them are leaning more towards tricks and creativity, and that M-Pro 108 definitely aligns more with the speed.
Yeah, and we could have, you know, a long conversation of whether this ski belongs at the end or that one. But they're both right there in terms of being relatively unique and not suitable for 98% of the skiing population. You know, these are really very specific skis, similar to what we talk about with like an FIS level race ski.
Yeah.
Like there's just not a ton of recreational skier applications.
They almost don't need to exist. And like, I say that with hesitation because I don't want anybody from Volkl to be offended, but like.
But some people, require this.
It's a pretty small.
Yeah.
It's a small use case.
Yeah. This is a Mantra 108, unchanged from last year and unwilling to receive the updates that we see in the M7 and lower in terms of advanced Titanal frame and carbon tip technology. They don't care. This ski.
I like that you're personifying the ski. That the ski said no.
The ski said no.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. No one in the people didn't care.
Yeah.
The ski was the defiant one.
The engineers probably tried.
Right.
The machines
Couldn't
probably
get
broke.
Through it. Yeah. They're like, nope. 2,330 grams. This is what, the 184 probably?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, and really, just it has a lot of that old school Volkl feel to it. Not as crisp or as precise as we see in the narrower skis in the Mantra line. I think the 102 is a little bit of an outlier because it still hasn't been given that the most modern treatment yet. But that one could. It doesn't need it. This one doesn't need it and doesn't want it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So yeah, poplar beechwood core. We still get a Titanal frame. It's not tailored. It's
it's
wide.
just the same width or thickness, whatever you want to call it.
It's actually the thicker. It's the 0.7 or
I was more referring to this
the width. Yeah.
Width.
But it's thicker metal, so you do get that added bonus of more material, and when you hit it, you hear it. So there's definitely that metallic component to it, whereas you don't feel that with
damper.
With M-Pro. M-Pro, it's just super damp. This one really wants to just cut through and just absolutely rip on edge throughout anything.
Yep.
And not the best floater, especially in dry snow. It's definitely going to want to find the bottom more. I think that for heavier snow, it does a little bit better.
It's probably the worst floater.
It's likely the worst floater. Just because it does feel like it is just too knife-like and just wants to cut.
Yeah, it's like as soon as you put it on edge, it just dives.
Yeah. And, I'm sure there's some people that love this as a powder ski, and who are we to say that they're wrong?
I would put money on them having a race background.
I would second that bet. But we do see a similar profile that we see in a lot of other Volkls, where it's flat overall. We talked about tail. This is a longer rocker, but probably similar splay to what we see in that Kastle. But yeah, pretty flat overall. Part of that is that they are loosely adhering to a 3D radius side cut. Again,
39 in the shovel.
39 shovel, 19 waist, and 34 tail. I would be happy taking that 19 out of it and saying 30.
I was just going to say you could average it out to 30.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, likes to go
on the
straight.
M7, you can find that middle radius. I've never found it on this ski.
No, and there is something to be said though for its ability to be, very supportive and compliant on firmer snow.
Yeah.
And not that ice is a big part of any ski's performance in this discussion, but if you encounter ice on this, you will be the most supported.
Yep.
And with very predictable outcomes.
Yeah.
Like this is an extremely predictable ski, albeit at an extremely high level.
If you're skiing ice, you can put it way over there.
Yep.
Most approachable.
Yep.
But
loves it.
I don't think, at least no one shopping in this category is hoping that they encounter ice.
Yeah. But it's still like, it's pretty stiff, but it's not overly stiff. I mean, nothing in this category is like what we see with like a Rossignol Arcade 88.
No, that's a good point. Like
they all still have reasonable longitudinal flex for being able to bend them. But what you're getting out of here is just an extremely damp feel. So any adversity that this ski encounters, it just goes right through.
Yeah.
And you just don't feel it. You might hear it, as we have talked about with Volkl skis in the past.
Yeah, but you don't feel
that metallic sound, but you don't feel it.
Yeah, and like the sound, you get used to it like pretty quickly.
2 seconds. Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, it's really taking same things that we were saying about Unleashed 108 and just emphasizing everything about like cutting through snow and wanting to be on edge and wanting to go fast.
And that's what makes it demanding. You know, like whereas the M-Pro is demanding because it wants to go fast and pretty straight. This is demanding in that it wants
more of a technical sense.
Yeah, it wants to cut through stuff.
Yeah.
But fun too to end on. You could flip them for different
skiers, totally. Like many of the things that we talked about, like you could flip them, and it's all stylistic and like subjective in skiing style and preferences. So yeah, that's it. That was fun. Thanks, Bob.
Oh yeah.
If you had to pick one, what would you pick?
I don't know. This or this?
What would?
Sorry. Unleashed and Rustler, I think, make the most sense for what we do around here.
Yeah.
Really, none of them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I was taking my mind out of Stowe.
Yeah.
You know, if like, say you're skiing Alta all the time, which would you choose?
Probably a Blank.
Yeah, sure. I think I would probably go Sender Free 110. But a lot of good choices up here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was fun. As I always say, let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if you have questions about a ski that we didn't include up here. This one's funny because we start to run into width restraints.
Yeah.
So there's a limit to
the amount of skis
that'll fit on the wall. But yeah, seriously, like don't hesitate to ask a question. And then I'm excited to go one narrower, and we should have that.
Wider?
Oh my God. The beginning and the end of the video.
Yep.
I also misspoke a little bit in the beginning because we will go narrower. We talked about people wanting some specific categories.
Yep.
So I am looking forward to going one wider. Should have that out next week. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.